David Walker makes his weekly appearance. He tells us his observations after the Hornets' first preseason game. Tre Mann, Miles Bridges, plus the starters go out there for the second half. We'll get to all of it today on Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your podcast, and that includes YouTube. There's Doug Branson dancing for us a little bit. Dancing Doug, they call him. Every Hornets Boxscore.com. Yeah, I like that better. Nice. I went with the alliteration. David went with the rhyme. That's why he's the OG. Doug Branson, you can find him on his substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. There's David Walker. Giving us another background if you're watching us on YouTube. Again, you can subscribe there as well, at David B. Walker. David, you were in Durham live.
Yeah, that was real. That was not a background.
Oh, right. No,
yeah, I was on the ground.
I feel like, hold on. Yeah, I feel like we've been spreading a little bit of misinformation because
you're probably right.
Well, because we forget that we are also on audio, and so people, don't always understand that the background looked super fake. Although I think we tricked a few people on YouTube. That's where the technology is these days. But yes, you are not really hovering above a classic Hornets court, suspended midair.
Yeah, and I think we took care of the audible people on the first one. Like we did enough.
I'm just telling you, the comments didn't sound. I had a few subtext and a few comments that were like, "I'm glad that David's there," and that they were just glad that you were there. Yeah, they were glad that you were there, giving us reports.
Yeah, I couldn't wait to get out of there.
Well, he's not. He just has the technology of putting the backgrounds behind him. Just to have a disclaimer out there, I'm Walker Mail. I have a plain background behind me as it stands right now. I'm not anywhere. I'm also on WFNZ 92.7 FM. Let's get your first impressions here, David, of the Charlotte Hornets, the 2024-2025 version of the Hornets. We talked about the big stories in that one. LaMelo Ball having a nice game. Tidjane Salon also doing a nice job out there as a rookie. What did you think was the main storyline, and what were your impressions about the game?
Yeah, LaMelo Ball back, I think, was the main takeaway for me. There were a bunch. I mean, I guess I would go with the Hornets backcourt as a whole, because one of the most interesting things was, and you guys talked about it a little bit yesterday, that Brandon Miller bringing the ball up some with LaMelo on the court. Something we didn't see a whole lot while they were out there together last year, but a little more LaMelo off ball and a little more Brandon Miller doing some early creating. But LaMelo looked to be, in midseason form as far as his shooting, his driving to the basket, and his dedication to defense. Big thing Charles Lee talked about post game was fighting through those screens, wanting to guard Jalen Brunson. All good stuff to hear. I mean, that's the stuff you want to hear, right? Brandon Miller, after missing, I don't know, maybe his first shot or two, had a stretch there where he just looked on fire. Mm-hmm. And so that was exciting to me because we were all wanting to see that jump from Brandon Miller. So I think seeing those from your two stars was really encouraging as far as how this Hornets team can perform early on in the season and what they want to build on. So the offensive shooting and firepower I saw from those two guys was really encouraging.
Yeah, it was. And, you mentioned his defense. I went back and watched that first quarter, and LaMelo was, staying attached to Jalen Brunson. Yeah. Hand near him, not giving him the back door, staying aware, some things that we haven't seen from him in the past. And I think there's still a question mark of consistency. Is he really dedicated? Is this hey, the coaches have been on me in training camp, and so I'm going to take this challenge and kind of dispel this narrative early, but I'm not going to maintain it once the games start mattering and I start to focus on offense more. We have to keep an eye on that, but at least first impressions there really good. And it wasn't just Brandon Miller and LaMelo moving the ball well. There's a possession that's going around right now on Hornets Twitter, and it involves the ball moving. I think it touched all five guys, but you had even Tidjane Salon.
DJ was out there,
making a baseline drive and firing it back to the left wing, and then it moves again, and it ends with a Tre Mann layup. And so, like, everybody moving the ball, everybody focused on that. That's going to be a good sign for this offense, because they will, need, I think, multiple guys taking playmaking responsibilities, because you don't have a lot of passing with your bigs. So you don't have a lot of passing with your bigs, then you really do need like 3 or 4 guys out there who can make plays, whether they be point guards, shooting guards, whatever. And I think the Hornets might have that.
Yeah.
Well, no, I actually think that ball movement is going to be a real strength of this team. So if you have LaMelo and Brandon in the backcourt, I know it's not like Brandon made a ton of plays last year, but it was my favorite thing about him coming out of college. I do think that he's a good passer. Plus, you have 2 tall passers in the backcourt, in LaMelo and Brandon, so they can just see over the defense. And if they see it, then they can make any pass they want to, unlike the guards that are 6'4", 6'3", and just can't see over the defense like Melo and Brandon. Miles Bridges, the assist percentage just constantly went up. Like, he's a pretty good mover of the basketball too. Like, I don't think he's a black hole that you just give him the basketball and he's going to try to go downhill as much. I think there was some times where the role called for it last year, but I think with him also just verbally expressing this, he's going to embrace this role as like a third type of option behind Melo and Brandon. If Josh Green's most underrated skill was his passing, according to Nick Angstadt, well, now we got your 1 through 4 all having the ability to move, and I think Mark Williams has decent enough vision. So, like, I don't think there's a player out there in the starting 5 where vision is a weakness. At the very least, you might have one player where vision isn't the strong suit, but it's not a weakness until you get to Nick Richards, who isn't the greatest passer. And then I think you start to get down there where, okay, now they're not the best. Ball movement is going to be a big thing for this team. I expect them to continue to be towards the top in assist. I think Charles Lee wants to move the basketball, especially if they're going to be taking a lot more threes. If they're a better shooting team, the assists are going to go up too. And it's one of my favorite things to watch on a court, right? Yeah. I mean, it's the pretty possession. It's when the ball is hot potato and you're making the right pass. I think we're going to get to see some pretty basketball this year.
Well, listen, I mean, Charles Lee coming from Boston, I mean, they were all about that. Like, 5 guys needed to touch the ball. All 5 guys needed to touch the ball every time they were down the floor, it seemed like. I mean, they were all about ball movement and man movement too. And so, yeah, I think that's just one more thing that Charles Lee is bringing along with this championship experience. So we didn't talk a lot about Miles Bridges in the last episode. I definitely want to get to him in a minute. His bounce, he had I think the highlight of the game. There are also some other little things that I saw in Miles Bridges too. But before we do that, we have to talk about Tre Mann and particularly his attire, which was a la Allen Iverson in the early aughts. He had the headband going. He had the cornrows going. He had, I know you're already, so David, if you're watching, David is already timing out. Let me just finish. He had the baggy, jersey. He had the baggy shorts. I mean, a lot of people were making the comparison, but David, before we jumped on, said, hold on.
You were the first one. You put it out there.
Well, thank you.
I look, I'm with you. But we can't go there. We can't go there with one of the GOATs, with one of the true trendsetters, the cultural icon, and Allen Iverson. You know, I've met AI, as you guys know. We met. We hooked up at the Hornets game last year.
You guys are basically best friends.
I mean, I did send out that as a Christmas card last year. I'll do it again this year. I'll do it. You guys will get one this year. Yeah, but you know, Tre, the thing we love about Tre, and here's what I love about it: League Fits is already, maybe League Fits on Instagram is already kind of earmarking him as a player to keep an eye on this year. I love it, Walker. I think you're a fan too of the baggy look. It's not like overly baggy. It's just like baggy enough where it looks different from the super skin tight stuff we're seeing mostly on the court this year. So I'm all with it. He's fully embracing it. He was asked about it after the game. Like, this is now a thing, especially in the preseason. It's going to be fun to watch.
No, Tre is all vibes first team.
Yeah.
You can see it as soon as he steps on the court, even with his play style. All vibes first team. And it doesn't matter what you're discussing with Tre Mann. That's his role on this team right now. I'm excited for him to come into this year. And remember, this was a guy a lot of people were always excited about and tantalized with the talent that he has. And again, it's just when you're in OKC, there's too much talent over there. It just wasn't his time. He embraced it as soon as he donned the purple and teal. He was making impact plays immediately. So I'm excited to see what he can do this year. You have more Tre Mann thoughts, Doug?
Well, if you want to make the case that people are sleeping on the Hornets, and by the way, the Athletic seems to be making that case. They did their sort of 30 I think bold takes for every team, and the bold take for the Charlotte Hornets was that they were going to win more than 30 games, which would be a 10-game win improvement. You would start that case with LaMelo Ball being healthy, and that changes every single dynamic that we've seen out of the Charlotte Hornets for the past 2 seasons. But I think you would also want to throw into that case that the Hornets made several moves that people are sleeping on at the trade deadline, and one of those is Tre Mann that has some upside, and Grant Williams that is, was in a bad situation, now in a better situation, could play better. So when you're making that case that people are sleeping on the Hornets, I think you have to look at Tre Mann.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to like, honestly, once you get past the fashion choices. Like, he's being aggressive. I mean, and you saw it in that game. I mean, that was another takeaway for me, Walker. His desire to take the ball to the rack and also make outside shots, some of those step backs that Doug talked about. But you saw this even in the preseason, even in the offseason. Like, he's posting on social, like he's in the gym working out. It feels like he really wants, to prove some things here. There was so much talk last year about Micic or Mann or Micic, coming out of that trade and the end of the season for the Hornets last year. It looks like it could be both, which would be a boost for the Hornets. But I think Tre Mann is really looking to make a splash here and be that guy that, like, the Hornets have never really acquired or had as a legit guy off the bench, that can be a threat. I think that's exciting.
There is something that scares me, but I'll save it for the other side. There's something that scares me about all of this, but I'll save it.
Okay. All right. We'll get to Doug's fears coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Bees everywhere!
Doug's fears, Miles Bridges, more Tre Mann thoughts, starters out in the second half. That's coming up next, LOH. Before we get to that, I want to tell you that this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Guaranteed, folks, when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Again, that's FanDuel.com, America's #1 sports book. More Locked On Hornets ahead. Doug, you said you had some fears. What were your fears about Tre Mann specifically? Something else?
Well, my fear is that he's going to play at a sixth man of the year level, and the Hornets are going to get really locked into this idea of keeping their pick and get enamored with the idea of the assets that they could bring back, not with Micic to the Nuggets, but with Mann to some team that's going to need the outside scoring, the playmaking that Tre Mann can provide. So that's my fear, is that any of these guys outside of LaMelo, Brandon, Mark, that they really pop off, and then the Hornets go, okay, now's our time to take advantage of that. I'm going to fall in love with these guys, and they're going to rip them from me.
Dare to dream. Can we have a good problems now? Is
that would be a great problem.
Yeah. I mean, I almost fail to see the problem, but I at the same time, I do see the problem. Well, okay, so just finishing thoughts on Tre Mann, and this is something I just feel like Tre had been doing the right things the entire time that he's been in a Hornets uniform. Remember, he was the guy that was getting all of the starts with all of the injuries last year. So the previous regime saw something in him. Looks like the new regime also sees something in him. Tre was taking the right shots once he put on a Hornets uni. Like, when you go back to how much he was shooting at the rim in OKC, I don't want to say non-existent, but he was not getting to the rim all that much whatsoever. At least not his rookie season. Maybe did a little bit more so as the years went on. Actually, no, and I apologize. No, the first 2 years he just wasn't getting there. This past year, the guy was shooting in the 88th percentile in frequency at the rim. He was getting to the cup, and then he was actually finishing at a decent level too. And we mentioned the strong, bucket at the rim in this first preseason game. I just feel like Tre is starting to figure out where his bread is buttered and where most people's bread is buttered in the NBA, getting to the right spots on the court. Tre is starting to figure that out. Miles Bridges, we had the conversations about him. Where does he need to take his shots? Well, he took a lot of mid-range shots last year. Didn't quite work out for him in terms of efficiency. The volume was there. The points per game, it was there. The efficiency, not nearly as much. With Miles coming back, he said that he has his bounce back. He talked a little about how he was able to get his athleticism back. So we got to see it on display pretty quickly. First preseason game is pretty quickly to showcase the type of talent that he still has. Doug, I know you wanted to talk about this. What were your thoughts on Miles, his comments about his athleticism, and what you saw against the Knicks in the first preseason game?
So on his bounce, he was asked about this, like, what specifically did you do to get it back? And he said that he had some dietary changes, specifically avoiding fried foods and not eating past 8 p.m. Now, I'm a little concerned that Miles Bridges is getting his dietary advice from Gremlins. Like he was just watching the movie Gremlins.
Oh my God. You paused for that one. You're like, huh? Yeah. What'd you guys think?
Yeah, I had to throw it out there again. I didn't get any response. I had to make sure people understood.
I say Gremlins.
I said Gremlins. He also focused on protein intake. And then there was some training stuff, too. New training staff for the Charlotte Hornets. Here's some good news. They worked with Bridges to focus on single leg and double leg exercises to improve his explosiveness and his overall athleticism. And he, commended the dedicated work of that training staff. So, again, all love to the organization right now. They're making little moves behind the scenes that are having big impacts on these players. And you saw it in that highlight. I mean, he comes off that cut, and he got up pretty high for that dunk, and he was not afraid to show off the bounce.
That's how he shows it, right? It's cuts, it's open space, it's guys feeding him. Like that seems to be the recipe for Miles getting back to what he was able to do a couple of years ago in terms of bounce.
Oh, yeah. I was with you, Walker. As soon as he took off for that dunk in the lane, I was like, his bounce is back, confirmed. I saw it. I can confirm it. Do you guys remember the strength shoes? Like the one
I had them. Yes, okay. Had a pair.
Yes. I was hoping he would just be like, yeah, I just found a pair of strength shoes on eBay and just went hard after him.
Yeah. I was the guy that was running around. Basically, if you don't know Catawba County, shout out Crib, Claremont, town of 1,000 people, few stoplights, right? I was the guy in my strength shoes as soon as I got them, running around the neighborhood and in hopes of, like just Larry Bird out there in, country town USA trying to get my hops right. I was able to dunk. I don't know if my hops were right, as you might say, but I was able to dunk, and that's basically because of the strength shoes. I owe it all to them.
100%. I can't believe they went out of business. But yeah, I was also with you, Walker, in that it's the first preseason game. It's a small sample size, obviously, but Miles talked about it in the preseason that he's willing to kind of take that third man, that third fiddle role, and it looked like he was comfortable doing it. If he can get a couple of those corner shots, LaMelo and Brandon both love that looping corner pass, when they're either driving down the lane and they have
LaMelo's sick at it. LaMelo's
that's his bread and butter. But they can both do it. So if these guys can find space, and in particularly Miles, if he's got his bounce back and some of his shot back, that could be a nice boost for these Hornets. But I think it's a lot. I think it does say a lot about him because it's not like he doesn't have anything to prove. It's not like he's on a long-term deal, but he does look like he's comfortable here. And comfortable saying, hey, you young guys kind of take the reins and lead us. So, I liked everything I saw from Miles too. Defensively, we can still go, but so far we'll like what we see.
Well, you know what I saw from Miles, and I don't know if this was a mishap or if this is part of the strategy. We'll have to see if we see it again this preseason. But there were a couple of plays where he would situate himself down on the low block on the left side, where I don't think the defenses think he's as big of a threat. And then you would have LaMelo or Brandon drive and find him. He wouldn't cut to the corner and wait for the ball. He would get the ball like halfway between the corner 3 spot and the rim, and then he would dribble once and shuffle back and knock down a 3-point shot. And so I don't know if that's just a little timing issue or if that actually is what they're trying to achieve there, waiting for the defense to draw away from him because he's not going to be as big a threat there and then shuffling back to the 3-point line.
All right, let's move on. One more segment to go. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Bees everywhere!
Okay, finishing thoughts on the first preseason game. Maybe we preview some of the second preseason game tonight at the Spectrum Center. The Hornets take on the Miami Heat. That's still to come. LOH. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. And Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Gametime Picks has curation, which makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. They give you all-in pricing, and you can toggle that feature to show the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Plus, they give you seat views, lowest price guarantee, and Gametime ticket coverage. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime.
Gametime. All I'm saying is if you're Miles Bridges, avoid water. Okay, that's just I know, don't eat after midnight, avoid water.
Right.
Gremlin. What I'm saying is Gremlins. These were rules in the 1980s
Very
film
clear.
Gremlins. Mm-hmm. Okay, one more thing. I've got some cleanup from the last show. I said that Tidjane Salon did not make a single three in Summer League. That was incorrect. He did make one single three. He was 1 of 10 from three for the entirety of the summer. I apologize for the error.
Did he try and bring the crowd up with him after he made it? Did he turn to the crowd and say...
I was a little disappointed in myself for forgetting that, because that we did laugh about that, is that he was 1 of 10, and that one that he hit, it was like he had won the Super Bowl. He was doing the Tiger Woods fist pump on, I believe it was a corner three that he hit. And we saw that same kind of excitement from Tidjane, and I think he even was asked about it at practice yesterday, and he said, I love to get the crowd going.
I can't wait until he does. The people are going to embrace him. He's going to be a fan favorite if he's already not a fan favorite without having played a regular season game yet. I really like Tidjane. I know I've said that about a million times now, but he's a fun dude. Doug, you wanted to talk about the starters getting 20 minutes. Tidjane also got over 20 minutes in this game. What do you think about the starters playing a decent amount?
It's interesting, right? Because you had, on one side, you had Tibbs for New York, who notoriously runs his starting unit, his top 7 guys, top 8 guys, he runs them into the ground. You had him after the first half saying, all right, call out the dogs, I'm going to bring in my deep reserves, and didn't play Cat all that much, even less so than the other starters. And then you had Charles Lee trot out the starting unit plus Nick Richards subbing in for Mark Williams. You had him trot that starting unit out for several minutes to open up the first half and allowed the Hornets to build a 10-point lead. But I think, the question is that safe? I advocate playing starters for sure, getting them in some rhythm. But with all of the injuries that these players have sustained, is it wise to give them significant minutes this early in the preseason, David?
Are you going fully against your Dave Canales take now? This is something, I know we talked about it before.
Great
you
call.
were so against Dave Canales. Now, you there is a threading of the needle with Doug Branson's takes on how much you want to play the starters in preseason.
No. Dave Canales did not want to play the starters at all.
But he did play him. He played him. He played him in against the Bills. He played him just a little bit.
I know, but he didn't want to. He was made. I feel like my pressure.
You kind of forced his hand. Yeah,
I feel like I forced his hand a little bit. He was he felt the pressure that I was generating online. So that's what I'm saying. You play them, but how much do you play them when you've had so many injuries? I know you got a new training staff, and these guys have been in Charlotte all summer, but I still think the risk is there, right?
Yeah, I guess there's something that coming out of the half, starting a second half with your unit, getting used to that. We'll see how much he sticks with it as we make our way through the preseason, because he certainly, played basically everyone that was sitting over there by him at some point. And maybe they just wanted to get a look at those guys coming out of the second half and try and build a lead. But yeah, we'll see. I don't think you can't not play them. You want them to get time on the court together and all that good stuff. So Tibbs, Cat's was only there for 4 days with the Knicks, so he didn't even play that much. I think he only hit one or two shots. So we'll see how it plays out. It'll be interesting to see if they continue that, throughout the preseason, or how deep they take these second half minutes for the starters.
Yeah, maybe give the home crowd a little bit more time with the starters, and then put the bench guys in as this thing goes on. There's 5 preseason games, so this will be the only other home game in the preseason. You'll have 3 other preseason games before we get to late October once the real thing starts. So, and you're right. They got a new training staff. Let's put them to the test right away. Just to see. Okay, it's preseason for the training staff too. We got to get those guys out there and see what they're all about.
Well, certainly LaMelo was putting them to the test, or at least making them just sort of clench their while they were watching him, because he was fleeing his body, clenching their gremlins while he was flinging his body all over the court. So I don't know if they're going to talk to him about that and say, hey, just watch your landings, buddy. Those are expensive ankles that we put a lot of time and money into. But I think the danger is that you've got a new coach in Charles Lee who is super competitive and wants to see his starting unit play together and just essentially get in a groove with them early on. But the danger is that just so much of the sports science is saying take care of these guys when the minutes don't matter. So I don't envy his position trying to balance all of that.
The good news is he's not unique to this position. Every coach is dealing with this. Even with a team that doesn't have the injury history like the Hornets, it's still a question that every coach has to go through. How much am I going to play my guys? Because quite frankly, no one is going to remember the preseason schedule. No one is going to remember the record. No one is going to really remember what you did unless you remember LaMelo Ball getting injured. And when did he get in? Oh, yeah, preseason. So that's what happened. Yeah. One of the ankle injuries came in preseason.
Just last night, Ja Morant, rolled his ankle and then had to exit the game. So you do not want to see that. But that's what we were saying. I mean, NBA preseason is not NFL preseason. These guys are going to play. Yes, you can monitor them on their minutes. You don't want to overdo it, but they're going to be out there. So there's only so much caution you can throw out there with them as they're playing, but they're going to play some. If there's any rolling of anything, though, that's enough. That's it. Maybe you shut it down for the preseason there.
You do, and that's the thing about Morant was that he got that ankle roll, and it was on such a freak thing. If you're a Hornets fan, do not watch it because it was such a freak thing. It was like the ball, it was a pass coming his way, and the ball hit him in the ankle, and then that caused him to roll his ankle. It looked like a dodgeball sort of thing. But then he comes back out, which is again, if you're the Grizzlies, you have so many injuries, and you also missed Ja Morant for much of last season. I just don't understand why he was allowed to come back out. If I'm the Hornets, I'm with David. If anything, if he sneezes on the court, I'm like, all right, take him out.
Get him out of there. That'll do it for Locked On Hornets. Thanks for making us your first listen. Again, we're free. We're available anywhere you get your pods. That is true throughout the NBA season. David Walker is joining us weekly. You can find him on Twitter at David B. Walker. You can also find him on YouTube if you subscribe to us, and then you can see the backgrounds bringing you different courts. This is the second court in as many weeks that he's given us
he's now a member of everyhornetsboxscore.com. He has his Charlotte Hornets game guide, so if you're planning to go to this game against the Miami Heat at Spectrum Center, you might want to check that out and get some pro tips from the pro, David Walker.
That's the Substack of Doug Branson, everyhornetsboxscore.com. There you can also find the subtext information. And I'm Walker Mail. Listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m., 92.7 FM on Wes and Walker. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back with you tomorrow to recap the Heat preseason game.